Welcome. My name is Nelson Davis. It is great to see you all this afternoon. I am excited to be here with such a distinguished audience. I am also acutely aware that I am the only thing standing between you and happy hour. And so it is my goal to be the espresso shot of energy and optimism that will launch us back out there for a great evening. I also have the privilege of speaking on a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is this idea of how AI is going to help us become more human leaders as we go forward. You see, this is a passion point for me. 6.5 years ago, I started an organization called Analytic Vizion with the vision to equip and inspire the next generation of data and technology leaders worth following. You see, a vision is a preferred future, and this organization was started with a great question, and that question was to focus on how do we have an impact on the person that's going to lead my kids and your kids and our grandkids into a marketplace and a society that we would want to hand them, and to think about the legacy of what we're leaving to the next generation. And so this afternoon, I want to open with another, what I hope is a great question for us to discuss as we think about this very critical time in human history, as we imagine what AI is going to enable for us. And that is this. It is, what if this next generation that are sitting here in the room with us today of leaders will make decisions that will impact the next 200 years of human history? And before you believe that that's too far of an overreach and that, imagining what could be true in 200 years, I want to take you back 200 years, right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. And you see, one of the things that was true back then was our society was shifting massively. Things that had never been done and had never existed were becoming true in a brave new world. See, we were shifting our society from rural to a more urban society. We were going from agrarian to industrial. Our modern form of capitalism was being created and implemented throughout societies in the marketplace. And impacts of the decision that those leaders made back in those days continue to impact our society and our marketplace today. And so before we assume that our decisions today won't have a lasting impact, I just want to challenge that assumption, because I think that AI is powerful enough for this question to be true. And one of the principles that I want to encourage you with this afternoon is the fact that leaders make the future. And leaders do so because of the decisions that they make. And see, decisions are value statements. And as we think about the values that we have as a society and what we want to be true, we have to imagine what could be and the virtuous possibilities of what this amazing technology enables. And at the same time, I go back to this idea of everyone in this room is in the space of data, technology, AI, analytics. We are in the space of what's called knowledge work. And I read a book by Shane Parrish called Clear Thinking a few years ago. And he introduced me to this concept that when we are in the space of knowledge work, the thing we produce is a better decision. That's our job. And so these decisions we're going to be making are going to have lasting impacts, not just on us and the organizations that we serve, but in our communities and in our societies and around the world. And so it's our opportunity to accept that responsibility, begin with that end in mind, and then just begin to work backwards. And so, again, I love this idea of vision, or imagining a preferred future that we in the data and analytics space would want to create collaboratively, harnessing the incredible power of AI in order to create an even better world. And I want to challenge those of you who are sitting in the audience who are thinking that's not possible. This technology is going to destroy us. Well, if we believe that, that's the future we'll create. But if we also believe that it could allow our human society to thrive in a future season, then we enable that opportunity to be in front of us. And so, it's our job to imagine this preferred future together. So what I would like to do this afternoon is have a conversation with you all on the idea of 3 keystone habits that are going to be enabling this next generation of data and analytic leaders to become more AI enabled, to become more human focused and AI enabled. And then I want to stack all of those things on top of one foundational vision that everything's going to rest on. And these 3 keystone habits, they're not exhaustive, but I think they're a great place for us to start. So with that, keystone habit number 1 is this idea of empathy and curiosity. You see, empathy is this desire to seek first to understand before trying to be understood. It's seeking to find different perspectives, uncover hidden impacts, and fuel human connection. You see, in a world of AI, we'll be able to have more stakeholders at the table, even if they're not physically present. We'll be able to understand the concerns of people who don't speak our language, but we can understand where they're coming from and what's going on in their world. We'll be able to make better decisions because we see a more diverse set of perspectives. Whoop, wrong button. At the same time, there's this idea of curiosity, and it's so critical. Curiosity is really an act of humility that says, I don't know everything. There must be something more that I can learn. And so in a world of a more human leader in this next generation of AI, we have to choose to get curious. We ultimately get better answers when we ask better questions. Now, one of the challenging realities that I think is interesting to understand is the fact that IQ, or intelligence, is decreasing as we go forward each and every day. And the reason that that's true is because amassing knowledge, AI is really good at that. And it's able to keep up with things and new technologies at paces that we are going to struggle with. While at the same time, this idea of EQ, or emotional intelligence, has never been more valuable and is only rising as we go forward in this world. And so, if you've built your career, or even more concerning, your identity on being the smartest person in the room, the value that you're going to be able to provide as we go forward is going to diminish over time. So the invitation and the opportunity is to begin to make the leap into EQ, that emotional intelligence, with things like humble curiosity, empathy that's going to fuel human connection, purpose-driven clarity on how our teams and our organizations will create value through innovation as we go into the future. You see, as we think about the world that we live in today in the space of data and analytics, I believe the statistic says that half of the world's data was created since 2023. And this is a statistic that has been replicated throughout the last 10, 15, 20 years. The pace of innovation and the size of the data is just growing at exponential rates. And you can see that with all the data centers that are being created and all the work that's being done in that space. And so, in a world where the data is only multiplying, there is no shortage of information. What we do have a shortage of, though, is the wisdom and the discernment to understand what actually matters. And I believe it's going to be that human leader that's partnered with AI that's going to have a more discerning perspective on understanding what is the signal that is the focus, that is the true thing that we need to focus on, versus all of the noise that's going to simply distract. And of course, that took me back to Nate Silver's book that he released over 10 years ago. I've always loved this quote where he says, the signal is the truth, the noise is what distracts us from it. But again, all of this has to be done in partnership with AI. That's where we're going to be able to multiply these efforts. And so finally, the principle here is that if you want a better answer, you need to ask a better question. You see, prompt engineering, that's something that didn't show up 3 years ago. That's something that's been around for thousands of years. We simply called them great question askers in the past. And I would argue that the person that asked the best question is going to win the day. It was true 1,000 years ago, it's true today, and it'll be true 1,000 years from now as well. And if you're someone sitting in the audience and you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, I would love to learn how to ask better questions, go deeper into some core questions of life, of business. We have this little book called Asking Profound Questions. It's 100 of the best questions you'll ever see on 10 different topics of life. And we have a handful of copies that we have out at our booth. We'd love to see you, learn more about you, and share this with you. All right, keystone habit number 2, relationship building and interdependence. You see, relationships have always been built on trust and working with people that we trust so that we can collaborate and learn from one another. So AI is going to enable this new form of collaborative intelligence. And where our teams have historically been all human, we will be able to collaborate not just with our human counterparts, but also with AI. And AI may open doors to things like executive coaching or advising from people we would never be able to meet in the real world, never be able to get a meeting with. But we can learn from the material and the content that they've put out into the public sphere and understand strategy and philosophy in new ways. Ask great questions of those that we may never actually meet in real life. The other thing that AI is going to be able to enable is the fact that as we think about strategy at an executive or a strategic level will be able to take the clarity that gets provided there and then do hyper-personalization for what that means for each person in each role inside of an organization, how it specifically might impact the day-to-day decision-making that they do, even though scaling that information may be challenging in today's world. The reality is that AI is going to speed up the velocity of communication and the clarity that we're able to create. And as a reminder, today is the slowest pace of human innovation that we will have for the rest of our lives. And so the reality is that this is fast and it's getting faster. Speed matters, and leaders have to continue to grow in order to stay in the game. It's also worth noting that the games themselves are changing. You see, we've historically understood systems in kind of a serial-like, linear type of format where there's cause and effect, and we look at individual nodes and look at the impacts and kind of the decision trees. In the future, we're going to be able to look at systems more holistically. We'll be able to understand the non-linear components of it. We're going to be able to look at correlations that we can't fully understand just yet. And it'll be the opportunity of the leaders, the strategic thinkers, to focus on not the individual components of a system, but the outcomes that these systems are designed to create. And then the opportunity will be to focus on those outcomes and then look to the AI to optimize each individual process. These systems that are AI-enabled will be able to create that optimization, heal themselves when they go sideways, learn from themselves, and they'll give us better insight into how we can create those optimizations. Ultimately, the human-enabled leader is going to be focused on creating systems that have clear and worthy outcomes of what we want those systems to create. And it's our job as the leaders to have the wisdom and discernment to figure out what actually matters at that point. The last keystone habit I'm going to talk about here is this idea of courageous agency. And if we are not already, we had better get comfortable with discomfort, because this is the world that we live in. The pace is fast, and again, it's accelerating. But part of what we must be able to do is, take action, move forward, ship it. We've grown up in a world where research and intelligence gathering have been expensive and time-consuming. And yet AI is able to do incredible market research in the span of minutes. Leaders must take advantage of this new speed and getting to action significantly faster. The reality is that AI is going to enable rapid innovation. There may be entire business models that cannot work today that may work in 3 years, 5 years, 6 months from now, because AI enables those business models to become profitable. These are the opportunities that are on the other side of what's going on for all these jobs that may be significantly impacted. There are jobs that we can't quite imagine yet that are going to be coming forward. We have to be willing to fail fast, learn quickly, and then repeat these cycles as rapidly as possible. The agency side of this is our ability to choose to make a decision. And so as we think about these AI systems, it's really interesting and thoughtful to design them such that we are intentionally picking the places where humans will be engaged in the decision-making process. And look, that is a subtle but complicated question. Because if you think about it, if something goes sideways, who are we going to blame? If something goes awesome and creates amazing success, who do we attribute that to? These are some of the subtle complexities that are awaiting us tomorrow as we think about how are we going to use these technologies for virtuous means. Now, like any good consultant, I thought it would be great to come and bring you all a good 2x2 matrix. And so I found this a few months ago, and I've been thinking through it, and it's been helpful for me to understand the appropriate applications for particular ways to approach AI. And so on the X, you've got this idea of uncertainty, and on the Y, you have this idea of criticality and just this impact that it's going to have on the decision we're going to make, the stakes that it's going to have. So look, when uncertainty is low and the stakes are low, this is ripe for automation. These are things that we want to scale rapidly. If we get it wrong, it's okay. But it's very predictable. We can kind of build these things, automate them, et cetera, right? Now, if we shift out and the uncertainty begins to increase, I love to think about this in terms of like your sales teams, your SDRs, your BDRs. They're having conversations with potential clients or customers. And You may not be able to predict the next question, but what you can do is have the AI listen for trigger questions or phrases, and it's going to help augment those SDRs and BDRs and help them have the right material at the right moment to help answer that question and create that clarity. AI helps, rather than saying, let me get back to you on that, it gives them the answer they need in that moment so that they can help that potential customer move forward more rapidly, get the help that they needed. Now, if we shift it, decrease that uncertainty again, and we go back up to where the stakes become higher, right? This is where we're going to be looking at things like scenario planning and being able to do exploration with AI. So think about stress testing certain supply chain systems or financial systems where the things that we want to focus on, they're actually really predictable, but they matter a ton. And if we get it wrong, we're going to have huge misses, right? So we want to use AI to explore what could be. And then finally, we want to have and acknowledge the fact that there are still a lot of things in this world that have high stakes and lots of uncertainty. And in these cases, this is where we want to work in partnership with AI, ask great questions. But at the end of the day, we want human beings who are contextually aware of all sorts of factors, making the final call in these decisions. This is where we have strategic leadership. This is where we're setting goals for our teams, etc. And again, I offer this because this helps to create more decision-making on how to best partner with AI. And it is a dance that we are going to be doing as we go forward. Now, as I mentioned, I lead an organization, and we love helping clients think through these types of questions and really understanding, is the thing that you're talking about ready for an AI implementation? Is your organization mature enough? Is your data mature enough to be asking these types of questions? Is AI even the right solution for the problem that you're thinking about? And so if you are wondering about that, I'd love for you to take a quick picture of this, hit this QR code later. We'd love to hear from you, and this is an AI assessment that we've put together that can help you think through some of those questions. All right. Finally, this is the kind of foundational vision that I think everything really rests on, and that is this idea that we want to use AI to build a better world as a legacy to the next generation. One of my favorite quotes that I've learned this year so far is that when you are born, you look like your parents, and when you die, you look like the decisions that you've made. And I love that because it's a reality check of if you don't like the life that you live, you just simply need to make different decisions. And one of the things that's true in the news, and we see this all the time, is there are folks that are in the space of doing AI research and building these platforms, and frankly, they are unhappy with some of the decisions that they're making. They believe that they may be creating the end of humanity. So much so that they've stopped contributing to their Roth IRA and their retirement accounts because they don't think we're going to be here in 20 to 30 years. Look, I appreciate that perspective. Again, I want to choose the optimistic, virtuous vision of what could be rather than fearing what might be. And so, again, remember, leaders make the future because of the decisions that we make. And so, my invitation to you is that if each one of us were to walk out of this room committed to collaboratively creating how we might be able to harness this incredible technology to serve humanity and create a significantly better world, that goal becomes much more achievable. I remind my team often that we are the people that we have been hoping for. There are no heroes coming because there are no victims, right? No one is coming to save us. The answers to these really challenging questions are probably sitting in the room with us today. It's our responsibility and our privilege to have the power and the influence we have in this moment in human history. Again, a reminder, AI has no new ideas. What we need in this next chapter is distinctly human. We have to have a vision for how this is going to work, how we're going to partner in order to create those virtuous ends. We're designed in the same image as the creator of the universe, and we're born to create. It's one of the things I love about humans. Robert Kennedy once said, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were, and I ask why not." See, we're the species that put a man on the moon, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. And new ideas, new visions always look impossible before they're accomplished. And look, while this may be incredibly hard to harness this powerful technology for virtuous ends, I think it's also the opportunity of a lifetime. And that doing so would equip and inspire the next generation to lead well. And so, in closing, As I've sat with these ideas and really forced myself to imagine the highest possible good that AI could create, I believe it's ultimately this. I believe this technology will require us to more fully understand what it means to be human. Tasks that have required us to act more like machines will disappear. Professions that have called on us to become libraries of knowledge and information, those are going to begin to fade away. Ultimately, what will be left will be the most human things about us: relationships, discernment, creation, and vision. Imagining a preferred future of what could be. And while that might scare some, I find that outcome to be liberating. And I invite you to do the same. You see, if these decisions are going to impact the next 200 years of our civilization, we have a great responsibility to get this right. And again, I believe the answers in such a distinguished room are sitting with us today. I'd like to finish with this verse of scripture that Mordecai spoke to Esther at a time of great peril, but also a time of critical nature. And it was simply this: who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? My name is Nelson Davis, and it's been a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Thank you very much.